Hello and welcome to Lesson 4.9 Building Complex Input Screens. So the next few videos, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building an app for the fictional hotel Manzana. The hotel staff will use the app to register guests when they arrive at the hotel. So the first thing we need to do is let me just go into Xcode, and what I want to do is I want to create a new project. So I'll create a new Xcode project. It'll be a single view app. I'll call it Hotel Manzana. I'll click on Next. And what we want to do then is I'll just go ahead and click on Create. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the actual app, delete the view controller .swift file, and then we're going to go into the main storyboard, and we are going to delete the view controller scene. Okay, so after that, the next thing we do is we need to go ahead and we need to implement the data model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new Swift file. And I'll click on Next. And what we're going to call this is registration. So this is going to gather the registration information about our guest. And then I'm going to create another Swift file. And what we're going to be gathering with that is the room type. So I'll go ahead and click on Create. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video and create data structures that we're going to be using for this application. Okay, so if we go ahead and look at the data structure or the data model for this application, we're going to have a struct for registration. We'll have first name, last name, email address, the check-in date, checkout date, number of adults, number of children, the room type, and Wi-Fi access. And then if we go ahead and look at room type, there's going to be an ID for the room type, the name, the short name, and the price for the room. And then we're going to implement the equitable protocol for the room type, so we can check to see if they rented if the room is available or not. So after we've done that, then the next thing we need to do is we need to actually create what our input screen or our new guest registration will look like. So basically what we're going to have is we're going to have 5 separate sections. The first one for text fields, then for our check-in and check-out dates, and then for the number of adults and children, and then the Wi-Fi, and the room type. So what we're going to do is we're definitely going to go ahead and use a table view for this. Most table views have static cells. Static cells allow the table view controller subclass to have outlets directly on each of the input controls, making it much easier to access the controls values. So that's in contrast to a dynamic table, which requires a table view cell subclass to access the views on a cell. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a table view controller. So let me go in and actually add that in next. So I will go ahead and search for a navigation controller, and I will drop that in, and then we get our table view controller along with our navigation controller. So let me just decrease the size of this here a little bit. Okay, so what we have here is the next thing we need to do is I will go ahead and click on my navigation controller scene, and we're going to go ahead and set that as the initial view controller. And then I am going to go into my table view And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the content to static cells. And then I'm going to change the style to grouped. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add the number of sections that we're going to need for our guest registration screen. So I will just go ahead and increase the number of sections to 5. And then as we go through there, we can either add additional cells or eliminate the cells that are not needed. So right now we have 5 separate cells. So depending upon what type of data is going to be that's going to be inputted, our table cell may be using different styles. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use text fields for collecting the first name, the last name, and the email address. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and click on my object locator, and what I am going to go ahead and add a text view to my first section to the 3 cells that are there. So let me add that one in, and then let me go and add the third one in. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pin these, so all the constraints will just be 0. And I will go ahead and add my 4 constraints. I'll do the same thing with the label up above, or text field up above. Add my 4 constraints. And then finally, I'll do it for the last text field. And I will go ahead and add my 4 constraints. So I've added the 4 constraints and I pinned all 4 edges to the text field. And what I need to do is I need to add placeholder text. So for the first one is going to be for my first name. The second text field will be for the last name. And the third text field will be first name, last name. I entered last name into the wrong cell. Oh, what did I do there? So it'll be last name. And then finally, well, I keep on missing where I need to add it. Control V, there we go. So I'll delete it right there. So we got last name. And then last but not least, we have for our email. So the next thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and add a table view controller to implement the code needed. So I will go in, right click on my Hotel Manzana, and we're going to create a new Cocoa Touch file, and it's going to be a table view controller, and what we're going to call it is add registration table view controller. What we're going to be implementing is an actual static table view, so we can go ahead and delete the data source information. So I will just go ahead and delete all of that from the file, and I'll delete the stuff from the view did load also. Okay, so after we've done that, what I need to do is I need to go back into, I'll save the file, do a Command S, I'll go back into my storyboard, and I will go in and make sure that I set the actual table view controller class that this will be using. So we'll be using the add registration table view. So what I need to do next is I need to go in and add outlets for the text fields so you can reference them in code. So let me go in to my assistant, and what I'm going to do is I need to select each one of my text fields and add an outlet. So the first one's going to be first name. Text field will connect, and then it'll be last name. Text field, we will connect, and then finally we'll go ahead. Let me see here. I don't think I connected the right one. So let me go back into my first name. I think I might have doubled up on that. First name? No, maybe I didn't. Last name? Yeah, I guess I have them right. So I'll go down into my email and control drag over. And then what we're going to call that is our email text field. And I will go ahead and connect that. And then what I'll go ahead and close my assistant editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and add a back button or a done button. So I need to add a button bar item. And what I need to do is select it as done. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an outlet. So let me go back into my assistant editor, and I want to add an outlet from my done button. And it's going to be an action, and it is going to be called done bar button tapped. And what we're going to do in that code is we're going to print any data in the text fields when the button is tapped. So let me go ahead and click on connect there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and just copy that code in right now. Okay, I've actually gone in and copied the code in, and it looks like I do have a problem with that. So what I'm going to do is I need to go ahead and fix my UI text field. So I'll just select it, and what I need to do is I need to rename it. So I'll click on refactor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and update that to last name, and then it'll also change my outlet name. So go ahead and click on rename, and that looks to hopefully resolve the problem. So what we're doing in the done bar tapped is we're just getting the text. So if there's text in there, we'll add that in. If not, what we're going to do is just add an empty text field. So that will occur when the done bar button gets tapped. So let me go ahead and I will try running this and see what happens here. And let me pause while okay, so it actually looks like it's come up. So what I'm going to do is just type in a first name, type in a last name, and type in an email address. And then I will go ahead and hit the done button, and our done was tapped, and we're getting our first name, our last name in our email. So that's the end of the first video. What we're going to be doing in the next video is we're going to be adding the controls in to go ahead and collect dates.